Let's talk about async and await feature in JavaScript and how to make use of the same thing to refactor our existing React.js component to populate the Postgres. So async await is a special feature that has been added in JavaScript. It's a feature of JavaScript, not the React.js. Async await, the way it indicates, typically the communication between the browser and server happens in an asynchronous fashion. In the sense, when a browser makes a request to the server says request to the server, it will make a request and it will disconnect. And whenever the server is ready with the response, then it will send back the response to the back to the front end. So in those case, it is not a connected communication. It is not a synchronous communication. It's a disconnected. Means browser will make a request to the server, disconnect. Server, whenever the response is ready, it will call back the function that is given by the front end. So most of your code, if you are from a C# background or a Java background, you will be writing your code in a synchronous fashion. In the sense, you will try to write all the lines of code in a one after the other, assuming that if you have a line 10 and line 11 will execute immediately after line 10. But if it is an asynchronous communication, if you see that fetchAPI with then method, so your response may not come immediately, it may take time. So in that case, instead of using then catch syntax, we can still write in the traditional way of line by line. So for that, there is a special feature that has been available in React.js, that is sorry, not in the React.js, it is in JavaScript, called as async await. So what we do, let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. What we do, this code has been written with the traditional promise based syntax. In the sense, we have a fetch, what we are saying as this being an asynchronous code. When the response is ready, we are having a then statement. So what is this then statement indicates? Whenever the response comes, try to go and execute this code. If it is okay, return the response, otherwise throw the error. If it is successful, it will go to the next then method, otherwise it will go to the catch. So it looks like little. So if you are from C# or Java, traditional synchronous kind of a coders, then it will look this syntax will look little odd. So what we do now, we are going to refactor the same example to include the async await syntax in this code base. Okay, let's try to do that. So first thing is, yeah, let me go and try to remove all this code here, keep this. Okay, now whenever you are trying to write an asynchronous code, first you need to create a method with async keyword. Okay, so what I do is I'll say constant fetch data async. Yeah, first what we are trying to do, so we are trying to say I'm trying to create a fetch data function with async, like any asynchronous code. Like if you want to use any await statement inside that, we need to use the async keyword over there. So here what we are trying to do, I'm trying to create a fetch data async, and then what is the first statement I'm trying to do? I'm trying to indicate like constant response, and what I'm saying here in this code base, I'm saying I want to await means until I got the response from this API, don't go to the next line, just hang on to the current line. So now after that, what we want to do, we want to what you call we can if you want, we can just check if response is not okay, then you can go and throw an error. Otherwise, if the response is okay, then we can go and parse the JSON. When you're trying to parse the JSON, again we are trying to keep await. So wherever you are keeping await, that code is asynchronous. When the code is asynchronous, when you call, it will not give the response immediately. It may take time. So that's the reason when you say await, so we are saying, hey, please wait until you got the response, then only go to the next code. That's what this await is doing, nothing else. Now when I have the data, then after that, yes, it's usual, we are going to set the data to the post method. Then I want to have the set loading to method to the false. Okay, so fine. So now what we are trying to do, have a try statement. In the try statement, we are trying to await for the response. Once the response is successful, we are waiting for the JSON parsing. Done. Inside the catch statement, what we are trying to do, we are trying to parse the error message. So in the error message, when there is a failure, we are trying to catch the error and we are trying to capture the response and we are trying to make the set loading as the false. So we have defined our fetch data method and we need to invoke that fetch data method, then only we are going to get the response. So let's go and try to invoke this fetch data method. So I think it should be outside this. Yeah, fine, perfect. So let's go and try to look at this code. Okay, so we have refactored our code to use async await. So first we need to define a function with async keyword. If you don't, if you use the await with in a function which without async, it will throw an error. So that's the reason we are trying to create a separate function keeping it as async. Then we are trying to set that, okay, you are putting an await method here. So in the await method you are trying to call it. So what do you mean by await? Hey, this is an asynchronous call, means I may not get the response immediately, but don't jump on to the next line, means I'm executing the code at 14, don't jump on to the 15 until I get the successful response. In that code base you are going to use the await syntax. That's it. Okay, once you are getting, then if it is not okay, you're throwing an error message, otherwise you are trying to get the response again. We are trying to parse the response and trying to make the loading false, and at the same time you are trying to update the post also. Okay, let's run this example. Okay, we have npm start. The async await code is a professional way of doing it. Like if you are trying to write any new code, though you can do with the traditional, but if you write async await kind of a syntax, then it looks like a professional code over there. So both are very much valid, but async await code considered as the professional way of doing it. Okay, now you see you got the list of products, list of posts. You can go and look at the sources. If required, you can go and put a breakpoint here. Okay, and you can let's search for your network traffic. So you can try to reload. Yeah, so you're getting the response. If you see your network tab, so you're trying to simulate a slow 3G. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so otherwise I would have removed that. So here you are fetching for the response and you're keeping an await statement saying that wait until I go to the next statement, until I got the response from the server successfully. Yeah, so your response, if it is okay, yes, it is okay, then it will go to the here, and then again you can put a breakpoint to pass the response. Okay, once the response is successful, you can go and get this thing. See, of course, I was not able to simulate exactly the time taken for telling that okay, it is taking time to get the response, but yeah, in real situation, yes, it will take time to get the data depending upon your internet connection. Okay, so long story short, if you want to make your asynchronous code in a synchronous fashion, you need to have a async keyword to the function, and wherever the code is awaiting, in the sense it takes time to execute, not because of the time amount of time it takes, because it's a disconnect communication, it's an asynchronous communication. So browser sends a request, will disconnect, and server, whenever the response is ready, it will call back the function which has given over there. So in that case is the one where we are going to use the async await keyword. Okay, so you can go through my YouTube videos on async await ES6 sections to understand more about those things. It's just an implementation, an adapted version for the React JS to display the post list over here. Okay, done. So we got our loading false. So I'm disconnecting the debugging. So you should be able to see your post list displayed successfully. Let me summarize what exactly we have done. So previously we are using traditional way of using the fetch, then that is a promise based syntax to get the data from the backend of post and trying to display it in UI. We have refactored that to the async await, which is a new feature added in the JavaScript, and we have refactored our code to use the async await syntax, and the functionality is exactly same. Only thing is code based, instead of using the promise based syntax, we are using the async await based syntax.